morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Fulani. Just looking at some papers here. Yesterday, as you well know, was the World Press Freedom Day. That's a day that's set aside for, among other things, to highlight, the ethics of the profession and also celebrate excellence. That not just excellence, but excellence, and then the practitioner now being victimized for his sterling work. And this year, 2017, the theme was media's role in advancing peaceful, just and inclusive societies. By the way, the UNESCO established back in created in 1997, what they call the Guillermo Cano World Press Freedom Prize. Now, the prize is named for a Colombian journalist who was assassinated in front of his own newspaper office. The prize since then has been won once by a Nigerian, and that's Chris Anyanwu, who was jailed during the Abacha era for her reporting on a failed coup d'etat. Between that time and now, between 1978 when Chris Anyanwu won it, we've been looking, is it 78 or 98? We've been wondering how well we are doing ourselves. Now, it's a very tough prize to get because it's not just about excellence in journalism. Then you would have found yourself having been victimized as a direct result. And there are very, very few people who could talk about this, from a point of view of experience, more than Mr. Dapo Olorunyomi, who is a veteran investigative journalist. He's also publisher of Premium Times. Thank you very much for coming on the program, Dapo.
It's a great pleasure. Thank you very much.
Indeed, our pleasure. And we shall also be having a teacher of journalism who will be joining us very, very shortly. That's the Deputy Provost of the Nigerian Institute of Journalism. Now, this year's event was organized, co-sponsored by United States Information Service, I believe, in conjunction with LTV. And I'd ask you first, for your assessment of the state of investigative journalism. We see that we've come down in the index a bit. They say from we came down from 111 position, 111th position in 2016 to 122nd position out of 180 countries. Give me your assessment. How well do you think we're doing? How easy is it to be a quality investigative journalist in our country?
Well, let me just take the way you framed the question a little bit in two parts. So when we say press freedom, just a little bit different from doing a more specialized kind of press work, which is investigative. So the UNESCO ranking, which I believe this is RSF, this Reporters Sans Frontières ranking about the state of press in countries, tries to look at the enabling conditions around which the press function, looks at, the legal framework, looks at the social context, the political context. Those wider ramification of our practice is what's been looked at here. And the sense of decline that Nigeria has therefore suffered in this ranking has to do a little bit with some of the political intolerance in government circles, access of journalists to official comments. Because, the juice of our work is having access, having sources you can talk to, and it's all related to the fact of what journalism brings to the table. Development is impossible, peace building is impossible, democracy is impossible without a central organizing framework. The core is information, and the press is the institution and mechanism that makes this work. So if you don't offer that access, you then lead journalism and reporting into a new direction. So you now start talking of, fake news, propaganda, and all those kinds of things. The general consensus, I believe, among practitioners is that access has not been expanded over the past few years. But beyond that also is that the economic conditions around which journalism is practiced and possible the production of journalism in Nigeria is suffering perhaps the most difficult economic condition in the past years. And if you don't have those conditions, then you can't have quality journalism.
And I think it's probably very relevant, the theme for 2017, media's role in advancing peaceful, just and inclusive societies. And there's a need, because these are critical times, so critical minds are needed. Is it investigative journalism? People have the notion that it's a bloody expensive affair. And that might be one further impediment, because when you see quality stories, investigative stories, these are not stories you're going to do overnight or do in 2 days. Some of them take 6 months. You're moving all over the place. And tell me about that, because you being an investigative one yourself, you being a press entrepreneur, do you have investigative journalists out there? And tell me the challenges.
Okay, so let me historicize it a little bit. So about 10 years ago, understanding the depth of this kind of need in the country, we started what's now generally called the Wale Soyinka Center for Investigative Reporting. It was, if you like, baby steps, trying to give sense, encouragement, support to those who want to do this kind of job. And why is it so? Because, in fact, the Nigerian Constitution, insofar as we need a legal basis for the function, for the work we do, Section 22 makes it very clear that it is the duty of the media to hold government accountable. In other words, power structures, either economic, political, or cultural power, they need a mechanism which is organized to hold them accountable to the people. So that's the constitutional role of the press. I know that this is really not the norm today, but that is what it ought to be. And if you now look at it, holding government accountable then speaks in a very robust sense, therefore, to a kind of media which is an accountability media. Because look, if I do a newspaper today and I just give the prices of houses, I provide information to people, that's not accountability media, but that's important. If I give you the prices of cocoa commodities and things like that, I'm performing an important function. That's providing information, which will be helpful for development, for how people can interpret their lives better. But that's not accountability. So what Section 22 is calling to is really what you've just spoken about. It's an investigative kind of media, because those most consequential issues and contexts that give people the power to be able to practice functionally in a democracy, to be able to do the kinds of things you're saying, building peace, building inclusive societies, they are not ordinarily available. Sometimes they are hidden through the power of corruption, organized crimes and criminals. And
sometimes they are outrightly dangerous.
Oh, no, without that, you can see our country. So if you look at the central problems facing our country today, either you call it corruption, you call it extremism, you call it, in fact, those very rapacious kind of inequalities in our society, the conditions that foment them and those who profit from them are organized criminals. And if you just interface, either through reporting or trying to expose those things, you're really confronting, death squads.
I can imagine. Now, what do you think the new policy of whistleblowing, for instance?
Right.
Since investigative journalism is an aspect of that in any case, do the two tie together, and does it make it a bit better in terms of the sources, quoting verifiable, authentic sources?
Because journalism, the central ingredient of journalism, good reporting, is sourcing. If you have defective sourcing, manipulative sourcing, then you get poor reporting and therefore poor journalism. So
and therefore fake news.
Yeah, and therefore fake news and all those kinds of things. So, I mean, to the point then that you are speaking about, we really need a new kind of journalism here, and the whistleblower as one mechanism can help advance it. But let's make it a little bit clear. Whistleblowing too can become a tool of manipulation. So it's better that whistleblowing really is under frameworks that are accountable, that are they are multi-stake staker kind of governance, if you like it that way. And certainly,
when you say whistleblowing can be manipulated or can be manipulating, could you air that a bit?
I'll give an abstract scenario,
Sure.
not necessarily
Sure.
speaking to a reality. Suppose institutions of law enforcement set up whistleblowing platforms and then use it for their own manipulative end to get at claims. I mean, we always hope that whistleblowers will be defended, that they will not be outed. But if, say, the police or which are those agencies today, and then say, oh yeah, there's a whistleblower that's so we have to be careful about that.
One is reminded of Deep Throat in the whole Watergate affair.
Okay, but that's a whistleblower, really, but that's a whistleblower which has just a civic cover. It's not like a government set up a platform, oh, this is a civil. So we really have to find a way, the current whistleblower platform that the government has set up, I think it's a very salutary thing to do. We must support it, but we must make sure that its governance structure is a little bit outside government itself.
Okay, tell you what, we'll go on a quick break now. We'll come back and we'll look at other aspects, maybe some of the constraints to effective investigative journalism. And I wouldn't be surprised if money wasn't right up there. We'll talk about that when we come back from this break. Stay with us, please. Welcome back. We're looking at World Press Freedom Day, which was yesterday, and joining Mr. Dakbo Olorunyomi, veteran investigative journalist, publisher, Premium Times, in the studio, is Jide Johnson. Now, last time Jide was here, I referred to him as Mr. Jide Johnson, but today I'm very happy to be able to say Dr. Jide Johnson, Deputy Provost, Nigerian Institute of Journalism.
It's a privilege.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. It's a privilege to share this platform with you and Uncle Dakbo. Thank you very much.
Indeed. You've been in the House for a minute, so you've seen the setting that we've tried to do. Now moving on to some of the impediments to investigative, quality investigative journalism. One, we know time, but then time is also money. Sometimes these stories do need time. 3 months, 6 months, depending. Some can be done in a month. But editors want you to go out and come back with a story. This is the truth because they've got to put out something every day. Money, what part does money play in all of this? Of course, money, everything good, money is at the bottom of it, but has money been a weakness to our cause to get quality investigative journalism?
In whatever form, be it military, be it promotional, be it informational, whatever campaign you want to do, money is the driving force. You require resources, you require funding. For instance, for us to send a reporter down to Kaduna to cover a story for 6 months.
Okay.
Let's say for 6 months, he's going to stay.
To come out with one story.
With one story for 6 months.
Yes.
You know what it will cost to do that. So basically, the economic factor, it's a major hindrance to us having investigative journalism in Nigeria. Now, about 2 weeks or thereabout.
Sorry, sir. Usually, newspapers in Nigeria are set up by money bags. You know what I mean when I say money bags. Even though we hear how expensive it can be, especially in the days of print and all of that, but you don't set up a paper if you don't have very, very deep pockets. Is that not enough?
Well, the paper should be self-sustaining. To start a business, every business, if you start your business and you use your personal money to sustain the business, you run out of business, because that's the global contemporary model of running a business. The business should be able to sustain itself.
So now, advertisers' revenue?
Through readership, advertisers' revenue, and the rest of it. Now, if you check in the past, we used to have 700,000 copies of Daily Times being sold on daily basis. How many publications do we have? 60 to 70,000 selling today. So that's a factor. You see, before you interjected, I was talking about Richard Quest was in Nigeria a while ago from CNN. he did a lot of stories right here in Nigeria because the resources was there, the resources was available for him to do the story. How many media organizations in Nigeria can afford that? Let me say, okay, to send a reporter to go to New York, stay in New York for 2 weeks to cover a story in face of dwindling exchange rate, and how many? So that it's a factor in investigative journalism in Nigeria. And that's why some of us have advocated that the TV money, there's this rate that is collected by the local government, TV and radio,
TV licenses,
TV and radio licenses should be given. Should be given to. There's a way in which NBC and the federal government could work it out, and then that money should be given to radio stations, to TVC, based on their audience rating. Based on, you see, for BBC, for instance, if you are looking for a station that does a lot of documentary, BBC. BBC's documentaries are more like, from the broadcast point of view, they are more like investigative journalism. It's public funding. It's under public trust.
Under royal charter.
The radio and TV license model that we borrowed from the British government is what is used to sustain it. Because there must be a mechanism. If the public wants the media to be vibrant, there must be a way in which the public, because the media represents the public, that the public must support the media to do the, and not leave it for the money bags, and not leave it for advertisers that have interest. Their own interest, economic interest to protect. So until we do that, we'll still be having the challenges of pursuing stories.
That's why I see that you agree with a lot of that.
I do, and I think Jide is perfectly right. The problem is media, is so important for society, for democracy, for its development, for its growth, that some societies, and that's a very important point I think he made there. If you take some of the, France, for instance, and many of the Western democracies, they have appropriation that's made by Parliament every year in support of media. Now, bear in mind, this can also go wrong. Most of the French West African countries also have votes that go to the media. I'm really not in support of that funding model, but it's speaking to the complexities, the challenges that, the media brings to the table and how it needs to be financed. So the question now is indeed critical to press freedom, critical to the development of the media in this country is a discussion about its financing models. When you say advertising, that's one model, and that's really not working for the media as it is. It's important, but it can't do the kind of important things. It can't finance it. Evidence and research is proving that, advertising revenue is falling actually. So we need to think through new models to finance the media.
Because these are critical times, as the theme says, media's role in advancing peaceful, just, and egalitarian societies, critical minds for critical times. And so in pursuing that, these are some of the constraints that you are talking about. How about the internet? What influence has the internet got? Because the whole paradigm has shifted from the way it used to be. You wouldn't hear about a story until you picked up the papers tomorrow. The best you could have was maybe TV, maybe radio. But nowadays, is it massively, in fact, premium times, there's the internet is its mainstay, if I'm not wrong.
Absolutely. We exist primarily, on the internet.
And by the way, it's well known as a quality paper.
Oh, thank you very much.
Highly respectable.
Oh, thank you for that's very kind of you. But then you raise a point about the digital transition in the media. So as if the problem were not enough, you now have this massive technological disruption in the way how we gather our news, how we edit, how we deliver the news. The models have changed completely, and with that change, huge losers out of that whole game. Naturally, new gains are also being made. New players are here on the ball. But one central thing that, the reality of the internet has brought to our industry is the fact that the individual, the old consumers in the past. I mean, newspapers will print, and everybody knew that they will print the paper, they will produce the paper, and the vendors go out and sell, and those who want to read. But the readers of yesterday now can just sit on their laptop,
that's right,
set up hopefully a good, either a blog or a newsletter, or just get on the social media and build a community, and they've become publishers.
Without spending the proverbial arm and a leg.
And then you can break the story faster.
Yeah.
You deliver it instantaneously.
And then put it across a wider
and then
reach.
it's transborder, yes. So
Nigerians in all sorts of places, from Canada to Afghanistan, if they are there,
so there's
whatever,
a problem for
are picking up
newspapers
Nigerian papers
so
every day on the internet. Now, Jide, you're a teacher. Our efforts moving apace at teaching the new journalist that these are different from when you started out, and these are different times.
Well, you see, at the turn of every century, there emerges a new form of media. You see, when radio evolved, there was this threat that print, newspaper and magazine will go into extinction.
Yes.
Same thing with TV. Same thing with... You see, because there's no doubt newspaper has come to stay, because that's a major driver of policy formulation and the rest of it, and the permanence with which it gives to documentation. However, the readers, the demographic, the dynamics of the readers determines the form and the format with which you use to disseminate your message. And like was widely pointed out, the readers now are online. Washington Post is purely online.
That's right.
If you don't, for any organization, for any institution, for any individual, if you don't have an online presence, you do not exist in this world. If you are looking for you, the only place we can find you 24/7, the only place you can find you, the only place we can find you is online. Once we are through with this program is posted online.
That's right.
And anybody can access it any part of the world. And there's the need both for academic institutions, both for practitioners to embrace the new media technology. And as an institution, we have embraced that, and we teach our students on how to acquire this skill.
Because there are new schools
to compete globally.
Yes.
For them to be able to compete globally.
Okay. We'll go on another break. Stay with us, and when we come back, we'll include your calls. Welcome back. World Press Day tomorrow, I beg your pardon, yesterday, and we're looking at aspects of it and the challenges of doing that which we need to do, which is inform the people. That's what journalists are all about, informing the people. But there's a tension because usually government doesn't want everything to be known. And then on the other hand, you have the journalists and the papers and the media who want to put out as much as they can, all within the rules and the law. But maybe let's speak about that for a while. How difficult is it in our country to access information? The Freedom of Information Bill is out there. It hasn't seen the light of day. In other societies, they can demand as of right stuff. Here you will hear that, it's like that here too now, but we have to work out what it is that we can give you. How challenging is that whole area, where people that don't want information known are not cooperating?
Well, generally, secrecy is an ingredient of government, so, and it's global. It's not necessarily in Nigeria.
And there are aspects of it that are spot on.
Oh well, yeah, to be sure. But the Freedom of Information Act, which of course is a law now, allows you to access that. The information that's not in the public space. But let's be honest about this. Good journalism should be possible regardless of the Freedom of Information Act. Okay. Nigerian journalists were really doing great stuff before the Act itself. The Act should only help a little bit to advance this further. when you raise the point. So if I have a difficulty in accessing information, you know, I should be able to put in a freedom of information request. But part of that law itself indicates what's called the proactive disclosure, that government institutions, even before you ask for this information, ought to do that. That's one huge area that nobody is, they're not doing that in any sense of seriousness. So that law in itself, you know, should not be the marker for how good journalism should be done. You know, investigative journalism, by its very nature, is to go expose those things that are hidden from the public. But I always try to insist that we make this very clear. Now, investigative journalists or journalism itself, in order to serve the public purpose, must always carry the elements of truthfulness and accuracy. If you're not accurate in your reporting, that's not journalism that you are doing. If all the claims you are making are not verifiable, so central to any kind of good journalism, either investigative, because investigative is just a mode, a form. You can really investigate for a pernicious purpose. So for it to serve the public purpose, you know, and the public purpose really is the primary goal and end of journalism. In order to serve that purpose, you know, we must make sure that the critical elements of journalism, which is accuracy, verifiability, these are very important, and they must serve the public good.
Jide, I don't, as you well know, what that was just said, it's sometimes observed in its omission locally, and especially on the internet that we've spoken about. I think I was reading somewhere that Zuckerberg of Facebook and other people are now going to take concerted action against fake news that is put forward with as much care as possible, and that if you are not really observant, you'll be reading rubbish and you'll be swearing by it. And it's happening increasingly. Global organizations are now concerned. It's a big concern, isn't it?
Because the new word, one of the new words and the major word that was added to the lexicon of communication is post-truth. Last year.
Yes.
Post-truth. Now, because truth is the cardinal principle of journalism practice. Truth is the cardinal principle of human existence. Why should I watch TVC news, for instance? I'm sure everything I'm going to get will be accurate, will be a truthful account of what happened in Nigeria and globally. And that's the essence why people spend the time with the media, because the media is meant to be the eyes, the ears, and the conscience of the people, representing the people, giving them an opportunity to know about what happens within and outside their environment. And, you know, the challenges from American election, from different elections over the last 2-3 years, has been a lot of fake news out there on social media and other new media platforms. And the credibility of these platforms, because these platforms themselves are money-making platforms. Now, the credibility of these platforms are being questioned, and owners and operators of this platform are taking steps to ensure that whatever comes in, whatever goes in on this platform, because it's an axiom, when a lie is being told over time, in the media, it's accepted to be, unfortunately, to be the truth, but it's unfortunate.
And coupled with the whole digital age that we're in now, digital era, the cell phone has become ubiquitous. Just about everybody has one now. But nevertheless, you still have this whole problem of placing the message in a way that it can be understood if it is not a specialist message. I mean, if you're going to be doing high-level financial analysis, that will only appeal to some other people. But what with software now, like Photoshop, for example, pictures, they say what you see is what you get. Not necessarily so now. I remember some sort of a scandal. There are pictures online, money being buried in in burial grounds and burying graves, and then somebody else producing a picture and say, look at where it happened, and look how it was doctored, it was just dropped, you put in Nigerian officials to. How does I suppose it's a caveat emptor, unfortunately now, and this goes back to what you gentlemen spoke about, the reputation of the different places. You know, Premium Times is not going to do a thing like that. You know Sahara Reporters, you know all these different people will not, so they develop these relationships, right?
Because the media exists for the people, and it is the people that decides the ratings of the media. It's the audience.
1 moment, please. I understand that one of our callers to join the conversation has been holding on for a while. I beg your pardon. Good morning, Mr. George.
Yeah, good morning, Uncle Yori.
Good morning, sir.
And good morning to your guests, especially the Premium Times publisher.
Okay.
He's doing a very good job. Please, you should keep it up. Uncle Yori, the topic you are discussing is freedom of the press. I think, in my view, there is no absolute freedom. Freedom goes with responsibility. If responsibility is exercised, the journalist will not come to the point where he will now be struggling to be asked or to be allowed to operate freely. Let me just give an example. Only yesterday, the First Lady of Nigeria called your station to correct a report of
something in the Vanguard.
How she was being misquoted. She made a statement, and what went out was different from from the statement that she made. It was in this country, Uncle Yori, that the current president, when he was a candidate, a governor, made a publication in a national daily saying that this person is going to die in office, is not fit to contest and all that, and an editor published it. That doesn't show, to me, that doesn't show responsibility. If you want to be trusted, if you want to be respected, if you don't want anybody to guard you, you show responsibility in what you do. If that is done, there will be no need for you to be struggling that you want freedom in order to operate. Your integrity will give you that freedom. That's what I think. Then, regarding what Dr. Johnson said about TV license, it struck me. In my view, though, that whole idea should even be scrapped, because the local government that is collecting the fees, they don't operate media houses. And the media houses that are running TV stations, people pay for the what do you call it, the decoder. They pay monthly levy for it, for them to use it. So what's the point collecting money from people when you are not running a TV station? That's my view. Thank you very much for the job you are doing. I wish the Minister of Information were there. I would have asked him a question. Why is it that the TVC is the only station that runs conversational programs? There is need to review the policy. People just set up media houses for political reasons, either to witch hunt or to attack some known enemy. Only in this country, this is the only station that the public can call. You don't censor calls. Even if you had anything behind your editorial policies, when people call, it will create a balance. Indeed. That should be a policy in this country. Thank you.
Thank you very much for calling in. Thank you very much, and thank you also for the kind words you say about TVC. But you know, the interactive programs. This is another aspect of journalism that's coming upon us in this new age, and it does really help about the credibility. But you were going to talk about that, the different formats and fitting into the new audience.
Exactly, and because we exist to meet the audience needs. And that's why different organizations will meet differently, like in your explanation, the economics, time, and what have you. In Nigeria, in our client, for instance, Vanguard meets differently, Punch meets differently, Vanguard meets different things. Now, when we talk about online platform, Premium Times and Sahara Reporter, I'm looking for a break, I'm looking for a developing story. I'm looking for in-depth analysis of issues. Which of these publications will I go for? So these are ways in which different organizations position themselves, and there's no one cap fits all. there are spaces there that can be filled in. There was a space that Sarah Reporter filled. There's a particular space that Premium Times has, and there's another space that is out there for someone to fill. It could be an indigenous online platform that communicates in indigenous languages to the people.
And also it could be ideological. There might be a conservative.
Exactly.
Be, you know,
I think we need that in Nigeria, ideological, because it's very, very critical, because there's no ideology behind our politics.
Exactly. Mr. Marvelous from Investigative, good morning.
Hello, good morning, Mr. Yori.
Thank you for calling.
Good morning to your guest in the studio.
Sure.
Good morning,
I feel I respect journalists a lot. The people I respect the most are journalists, because they go out of their way, they risk their lives to give us the news, to give us the facts that will inspire us, that will show us what is really happening. Yes, they might not write speakers like the politicians, like our senators, but they have the highest integrity. Look at what's happening in other countries now. I think Nigeria will need to step up, because in other countries, journalists say, if you spread the fake news, you are tried under the terrorism law. Like in Kenya, for example, the wife of the president slapped a journalist in a room house. The same thing in Cameroon now. Cameroon are trying, once you are a journalist, they try you to court, they behead you. That's what they do. I feel to me all over the world, the global concern. We have to be for that journalists should be given respect. Journalists should be treated like there should be insurance for them. Like the man that was in channels that died in reporting in Medjugorje, there was no insurance for him. He just died like that. The IT man too just died like that. There was no insurance. So I feel they should make that, but they should pass it bill. Now journalists should be given insurance. Their families should be secured. They should have life pension. If you can do it for us, we can do it for our journalists. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Marvelous, for calling in. That was, you know, as you were saying, that was the unfortunate one about the channel. That was Kano, right?
Right, Kano, yeah, sure.
It was Kano.
Yeah.
And so it's talking about insurance, because not everybody understands that it's a hazardous occupation in certain aspects. I mean, look, even in the army, there are people who never pick up a gun, but they're equally as important. But you know that it's a hazardous, you know, profession. You just might get called to war. Ditto in journalism, I imagine, because they're all different brands of journalism. Different categories. We've talked about that, going from entertainment right up to high policy, intelligence, or different aspects of it. But it goes back to, and that's why Dr. Johnson is here, it goes back to the training of the professional on the one hand, so that he's as razor sharp as can be, but then there are also guidelines and that differ from place to place to place. The Nigerian Press Council itself, I imagine, has its own. You guys have all sorts of guidelines, right? Those things, are you sure that they are developing the Nigerian journalist and making him better at his job? How possible is it for him to comply with those things? There are also horrible stories about brown envelopes. You know, let it be said. Corruption among journalists themselves exists. I think they're trying to tell me something. Oh, they say I must take a commercial break now, so I'll come straight back to you afterwards. Yeah, sure. Stay with us, please. Well, Ishak from Jos is on the line. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Yori.
Okay.
And good morning to your guest in the studio. I'm Ishak Iwa Imam, calling from Jos. I want to use this medium to congratulate all journalists in Nigeria and world over for press freedom day. Although journalists in Nigeria have not really enjoyed freedom as it were, how I will still need to commend them. I want to appeal to journalists, particularly the investigative journalists, to take advantage of the Freedom Information Bill. FYB, I understand it has been passed into law. And go to all the whistleblowing things. Our investigative journalists are doing what they ought to do. We should be getting information from them. And I want to appeal to our national legislatures to please enact a law that will guarantee the safety of journalists. Any attack on journalists should be seen as a treasonable offense, because journalists are hope of a society. From them we rely on information. From them we hope for a better society. But at the same time, I still want to appeal to journalists to have a regulatory body that will still checkmate the activities of journalists, because it is important to disseminate proper information to the society, because we still have some journalists who will just send information, especially through media and through online. We send information to the public that they've not verified. So that's my take. Have a wonderful day, Mr.
Thank you very much, Ishak, for calling in. Yeah, we're talking about the whole matter about, look, every profession has its problems, you know, it doesn't matter where it is. Even in journalism itself, investigative journalism, I don't know, integrity is everything. Integrity is everything. This whole problem of brown envelope, I believe it sort of emanated from the journalistic circle. I don't know how right that is, but how widespread is it, and is it a problem? Corrupt journalism is not just in Nigeria, it exists all over the world. How much of a problem do we have with that?
I believe that it's generally believed that it's a major problem in Nigerian journalism. The conditions that have led to this partly are those things that you yourself spoke about earlier, about the, well, first, of course, there's integrity, the personal integrity of the individual is part of it. The second part of it is also the enabling conditions around which the media they work. Salaries are unpaid, you know, there's no insurance policy, as you spoke about.
Yes.
Life itself is really just left to you as an individual to take care of yourself, the institution that ought to come in. Now, this is not an excuse, but I'm saying that speak to the wider basis and cause for this. I think it's because, you know, journalism is a very peculiar kind of profession. Its purpose is social, yet it must also function to be able to function as a social, as a business.
And there is
now that business part of it is not always looked at. The social part of it is what we generally pay attention to. But unless we can now rethink, you know, the funding models in the media in such a way that we come and build big businesses
and sort of have
out of it.
Financial independence.
The independence, because indeed, you know, the critical elements of journalism is, you know, the question of independence.
Okay. One moment, please. I beg your pardon. Kayode from Surulere has been holding on for a while. Good morning, Mr. Kayode.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, please, I totally agree with Mr. George this morning. Please, you media also, please, what can you do for us, for this local government, when they want to collect money for local shop, they will collect radio and television. When they want to collect land use, they will collect radio and television. When they want to collect for food, those who are selling food, flour, and all this, they will collect radio and television. Are they operating radio? Are they operating any radio or television? Please, can you help us, Uncle Yori? This is too much.
Exactly. It is a problem, is why it was brought up, that things ought not so to be.
Because I have my decoder. I have my decoder before I can watch you this morning.
Indeed, indeed. Appreciate you. Thank you very much for calling in. You know, Jide brought that question up, and it's out there. But going back to this whole matter about the business model of it, because that's crucial. You were saying much earlier that even if a deep pockets were to set it up, it still has to sustain itself, and that there are different cost centers and revenue streams. So at the same time, people, the journalists have to be creative. I mean, the newspaper businesses have to be creative enough while they're, you know, keeping their core function, maybe doing other things to help.
That's why the society must support. And like Uncle Dapo said, there's the business model, there's the social model. We focus on the social model. Now, it's the social model that employs the media to represent the society. So the society must support.
Yeah.
In other climes, you see that the society supports. Why is it that you have the Scandinavian countries? 1, 2, 3, 4 on the Reporters Without Borders Index. Why? 1, 2, 3, 4. You need to see the business model and the social model of the media in Scandinavian countries. They have a lot of subvention from government. In terms of newsprint, I did a study on Finland as far back as 1992. Now, the circulation rate of their newspaper was about 99% to the population. of Finnish citizens, of residents, all residents. So there is a model to support the media in those society.
Which is lacking here.
And we need to have that. The major reason why the British model was used is to take away TV. TV emerged, broadcasting emerged as a public service, is to take it away from the money bags, from the money bags not to hijack it, and let the society fund it. That was how TV and radio license came into existence, to sustain. And that's why it was built under a public trust for BBC. And can we have such a model in Nigeria to support the media?
Indeed. Mr. Hassan from Lekki, good morning, and thank you for holding on.
Good morning, Mr. Yori.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Jide, and good morning, Mr. Dapo Olori.
Good morning,
Mr. Jide has become Dr. Jide.
No problem. No problem about that. You are very good in correcting me.
Thank you very much, sir.
Please, this issue of press freedom, please let us not misconstrue it as an instrument of media maligning people, defaming the characters of people and doing whatsoever they like. Because in whatsoever we are doing in this life, in every liberty there must be an order. You see, this is a time to do a general appraisal of media in Nigeria. This is the right time for us to correct ourselves, the media men, and people, the followership of the media. That is why, right from day one, we have laws in place. The defamation of character, the libel and slander, and that one of copyright.
Sorry, Mr. Hassan, doesn't all of that go without saying? All of that goes without. We've been talking about truth here, integrity. So all that you're saying, sir, we take it as a given.
Yeah. The issue is this. The objectivity of journalism is very, very important. It is not there for you to exercise the freedom. You must check your facts very well before disseminating whatsoever to the members of the public. Because whenever you are disseminating information, you are dealing with two sides of the coin. You are dealing with the subject, and you are dealing with the public. You need to be objective.
Indeed.
The more objective you are, the more objective your reporters are, the more serious you are going to be with your job.
How would you evaluate the Nigerian press against those parameters you just cited?
Yeah, Nigerian press against the parameters I'm seeing. Some of them are doing a wonderful job because they are very, very investigative the way they carry out their jobs. And we knew the terrain of Nigeria. It's a very, very difficult and serious one. But what is very clear?
Indeed.
We should make sure we are balanced. You understand? We should make sure we are complete.
All right then.
Because there are some things that are happening in Nigeria today. We look at the people that establishes the press houses on their own.
All right, then. Thank you very much for calling in. And I appreciate the point you made. But that's where I tried to go there, talked about needing to have ideological basis. So, look, if you are progressive, you read certain papers. If you are conservative, some other kind of papers might interest you more. I think the Fox channel, for instance, in the U.S. is clearly what it is for the Republicans. And so those kind of things. Because everybody will have their own sense of fairness and balance. But the point he makes, we take it without, it's a given, covering all aspects of the story. Most journalists strive to be able to do that. We've completely run out of time, and I don't know how it happened. It seemed to me like this program has only been going for about 10 or 12 minutes, but they tell me that, no, we're through. But it's a work in progress, right?
Absolutely.
It's a work in progress, and it can only get better. Yes. And Dr. Johnson, we are trading in the right way for the age of tomorrow, right? That's going on.
Exactly. And there was one thing that was established by one of our callers.
Sure.
Which is beating of journalists, harassment of journalists should be treated as treasonable and felony. And I'm in support of that. And I think we need to begin to argue for that to be included, because journalists represent the society.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jide Johnson, Deputy Provost, Nigerian Institute of Journalism, and Mr. Dapo Oloriyomi. Apart from being a veteran investigative journalist, is also publisher of the highly popular online Premium Times.
Thank you
very
much,
much, gentlemen.
It's a great pleasure.
Reliable, indeed, and reliable. You can see a repeat of the program at midnight on TVC Entertainment, and tomorrow between 6 and 7 a.m. on the cable satellite channels. I'm Yori Fulani. I'll see you tomorrow, God willing. Bye-bye for now.